Hi, everyone. Josh Rugger here in studio this morning with the latest information on a very active weather weekend here in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. You know, it's Super Bowl weekend. I've been joking about it pretty much all week, but now it's here. This weekend is going to be anything but super in the weather world here in Northwest Arkansas. So we got a lot of things to discuss, starting with that strong storm potential later on this afternoon into the evening. Of course, we got the latest day one convective outlook to show you kind of what our latest thinking is right now, what we're looking at in the atmosphere as well. And we'll kind of talk about Sunday into Monday as well. I know there's a lot of questions about those snow chances that are coming up Sunday night into Monday morning. So let's get right to it right now. Let's take a look at satellite radar right off the bat. And one thing you notice on satellite radar is a lot of high cloudiness streaming through Northwest Arkansas at this time. Now, we did have a thin line of showers that was located over central Arkansas earlier in the morning hours. That is well southeast of our area, so that's not going to impact our weather during the daytime. But I want you to notice this here. This is one thing that kind of makes me pause a little bit when it comes to severe weather potential later on this afternoon to the evening. We've got a lot of cloud cover that's streaming into our area. This is a zoomed out view right now. There's not a whole lot of clearing that's going on off to our southwest. We've got all these different storm systems interacting with each other, but the stationary front is draped over Northwest Arkansas right now. And this plume of cloud cover is just streaming off to the north and east from the Big Bend region of Texas. Now, the low pressure system of interest is still located over the Rocky Mountains. It's more a little bit farther east now. Remember, I made these maps first thing this morning. It's now located right over Denver. But this is the low pressure system that's going to kind of act as a catalyst for potential shower and storm development. Now, if we take a closer look at that right now, you're going to see that here on mid-level water vapor. Here's all that cloud cover that's streaming in right now off to our southwest. There's the low pressure system now diving a little bit farther to the south. You can see that well-defined spin in the atmosphere. And really, this position of low pressure system is going to matter quite a bit in terms of if we get that initiation for shower and storm development at the right time, because a lot of things have to come together for the severe weather potential to be realized. This is what we call a conditional severe weather threat, right? If all the right ingredients come together, there will be strong to severe thunderstorms. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to these particular storm systems, whether that be from storm coverage or the amount of instability that we're working with or the amount of shear. There's a lot of different factors that go into severe weather. And with this particular storm system, I think a couple of limiting factors include the position of this low pressure system and the amount of cloud cover that we could see throughout the day today. If the clouds can decrease a little bit more, which we're getting quite a bit of sunshine out there, but remember, we've got these plume of clouds pushing through the area all day. If we can't get consistent sunshine, it will be a little bit more difficult for that severe weather potential to be realized. But again, a lot of things that we're watching right now with the atmosphere. And I'll tell you what, the wind shear is very strong with this system. The wind shear is not a concern at all. If you look at those soundings, the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, we've got a lot of energy to work with there. We got steep lapse rates as well. So there is some ingredients there that we are watching very closely that we need to keep an eye on. That's why we're watching that tornado potential. It's a non-zero tornado threat. If you've looked at the latest day one convective outlook, there isn't a 2% risk area over Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. The marginal risk doesn't include Northwest Arkansas right now, but there is still time for that to change. And I still think we need to keep an eye on these thunderstorms if they do indeed initiate, especially along and south of Interstate 40. That is the area right there that we've got to watch the closest. I still think Northwest Arkansas could see some shower and storm activity, but notice this narrow window. It's a small window of opportunity for these storms to really take off. And one thing I've been noticing from the models is initiation is a little bit later on in the evening now, so more like 7, 8 o'clock. That's still fine. We're still going to have the wind shear in place, but the instability won't be as prevalent during that time like we're going to see later on this afternoon to the evening when temperatures warm up into the lower to middle 70s. So that's something to be aware of. Again, these thunderstorms are going to be moving very quickly off to the north and east. They got to take the correct track. So we'll be watching this time frame very closely, which thankfully is pretty much in the middle of all of our shows. So Dan and Zach and Peyton, they're all going to be here. They're all going to be watching it very closely. And we'll have the entire team here ready to rock and roll later on this afternoon to the evening hours. Now, again, large hail is the main concern, and we can look at that right here from the SPC. You can see that large hail risk, including portions of the River Valley and Northwest Arkansas, really from Fort Smith eastward. That's where most of that marginal risk of severe weather exists in our weather coverage area. Of course, the wind threat, at least according to the SPC, is just off to the east of the area. I wouldn't be surprised if we still saw some gusty winds. After all, they are strong thunderstorms, so 50, maybe even 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts can't be ruled out over our area. And then if we go to the tornado potential, again, there's not a 2% risk area over Northwest Arkansas yet, but we're still going to keep an eye on things here in studio. There's still a lot of things that we've got to watch very closely with this particular storm system. So, Jacob, I see your question right here. Any chance Northwest Arkansas gets included in the marginal risk? There's certainly the potential for that, Jacob, but one thing I'm sure the SPC is keeping an eye on, as are we, are those dew points. Right now, here's the thing that I've noticed. Those dew points are starting to surge a little bit, right? Earlier on in the morning hours, all those greens, which I believe the greens is where the line is between 50-degree dew points and higher. So the greens were way off to the south, right? Now they're starting to surge a little bit farther north. So we can take a closer look at this now and see what the dew points are in the River Valley, because again, the River Valley is going to be the main area for severe weather potential. So there it is right there, starting to get into the 60s in central Arkansas, which makes sense. That's why we've got the marginal risk, including that area. And this is why Northwest Arkansas is on the far edges of it, because the dew points still haven't risen yet, but they might as we go throughout the rest of the day today, especially along that I-40 corridor. So this is something we'll be watching very closely. Right now, dew points in the middle to upper 40s in Northwest Arkansas. Obviously, that's not going to get it done for severe weather potential, but if we can get at least into the lower to middle 50s, that will give us a chance at least some strong thunderstorms here in Northwest Arkansas. I see Dan's on here right now. I appreciate you, Dan. And Dan was the first one to kind of notice these trends with the models in terms of that severe weather potential. And he called it yesterday. He said yesterday when we had a general thunderstorm risk area that we would have a marginal risk over portions of Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. And that indeed has come to fruition this morning. So we're keeping a close eye on it right now for sure. Eric says it is now 56 degrees down there in Colbert, Oklahoma, southwest of the Arkansas River Valley. And thank goodness we need the rain this weekend. Yes, Eric. I know a lot of locations around there do definitely need some rainfall. And we're going to get a pretty good steady rain as we move throughout Sunday. But one thing we're also watching is that snowfall potential. I'm going to talk about that in just a few moments. Lisa's asking, is Fort Smith in the risk area? So, Lisa, I'm going to go back here for you just real quick. You're going to see that Fort Smith's right on the fringes of it, but pretty much in the marginal risk, I would say. And yeah, keep an eye out on these storms in Fort Smith, Lisa. These storms are going to be quick moving. They're going to be in and out of the area very quickly. They're going to be very hit or miss as well, isolated to scattered storms. That's what we're looking at right now. So they might initiate just off to the north and west of Poto and move through Fort Smith. They might be strengthening as they're moving through Fort Smith, but right now you are on the far fringes of that marginal risk of severe weather. And again, Northwest Arkansas, we draw a little bit farther north. You notice Fayetteville, Bentonville, Springdale, not in that marginal risk, but we are in that risk for non-severe thunderstorms, which I still think any of these storms that do develop in this environment will have the potential to produce large hail in Northwest Arkansas as well, at the very least. So we'll keep a close eye on that there too. But I do think the main locations to get thunderstorms are going to be along that I-40 corridor. Let's take a look at future track here. After we kind of talked about the limiting factors, we've kind of talked about what we're looking at right now. Here's the latest HRRR computer model. It's kind of been going back and forth this morning on if there are going to be storms or if there not going to be storms. Now check this out. This is 6 o'clock p.m. and it's not showing anything in our weather coverage area. So it continues to get a little bit later with initiation, and look at that, not showing a whole lot of activity. I don't know if I necessarily buy that quite yet. I still think we'll have at least one or two thunderstorms, but the trends have been towards less energy to work with, which would make sense if that low pressure system doesn't line up here in Northwest Arkansas, if it doesn't take that correct track. Now, it is starting to show a few thunderstorms in southwest Missouri, but check out those temperatures, which I do think we're going to be dropping off pretty quickly in far northwestern Arkansas and southwest Missouri. So a lot of things to keep an eye on. Again, these kind of systems are a little bit difficult to pinpoint where exactly storms are going to develop. It's almost like throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded. It's like, okay, initiation here, right? Where are those storms going to initiate? Even the models can't pick up on that. So a lot of things to keep an eye on there. But the trends have been towards maybe a little bit less energy to work with, which, I mean, that has always been a limiting factor. Are we going to have the lift? Are we going to have the forcing necessary for those thunderstorms to move through? And there is a lot of energy. You saw that low pressure system on mid-level water vapor. It's very powerful. So maybe the models are underdoing things. And, as a good forecaster, we need to look at multiple pieces of data. So let's look at the, I might do this. I might share my screen here to show some of the other models. But let's look at the graph 3 kilometer because it can't go out that far. So it's warming us up into the 60s and 70s. later on this afternoon. Now, it has Northwest Arkansas in the middle 60s, which is interesting. We'll see if that comes to fruition. I mean, if the cloud cover hangs around, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it stayed in the middle 60s. But check this out. Still no initiation at 4 or 5 p.m., and it's not showing a whole lot of anything. So that's the graph 3 kilometer. It's a little bit more high resolution. The graph does have a tendency to not show as many thunderstorms, but this is why we look at multiple pieces of data. Maybe this is a trend now. Maybe this is a trend to have less energy to work with, which would be great because we don't want to see any thunderstorms. We don't have any risk of severe weather, but we still got to keep an eye on things just in case. So I'm not surprised that the 4 kilometer graph continues to show no initiation. It's always going to struggle with the system like this. So it's interesting trends. It's interesting trends. So we'll keep an eye on it. I might show some computer models before this wraps up in terms of instability and things like that. We can look at that on Pivotal Weather and everything. But Becca's already ready to talk about the snow. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's talk about what's coming up on Sunday as well. And then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the science behind what's going on this afternoon into the evening. But Becca wants to talk about the snow. I know a lot of you folks want to hear about that as well. So let's talk about this piece of energy that's going to be moving through because we've got a lot of things that are going on here with the snowfall potential as well. So I'm going to take it off the high resolution water vapor here just so we can have a neater view. So there's a low pressure system right there. Here's another short wave that's jogging along the desert southwest. But if we zoom out here, you can see all of this energy starting to crank up along the west coast right now. This is going to be what we're watching as we move throughout the weekend here in Northwest Arkansas. And this piece of energy that's moving through is a lot colder than the one that's moving through right now, which is why our temperatures are not going to drop off too much as we move throughout the overnight hours tonight into Saturday. We're still going to be in the upper 50s tomorrow in most locations in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. But this piece of energy as it's moving through will have some dynamic cooling properties to it. And if you've listened to us talk about that, that typically leads to that wraparound snowfall with rapid cooling as more precipitation continues to fall. So before we show the computer models, right, let's go ahead and take a look at that vorticity map. Let's see where that energy is moving. Because one thing that's going to make or break this snowfall potential is the track of the low pressure system, right? So if the low pressure system is a little bit farther south, this may lead to more snowfall potential here in Northwest Arkansas. But if it's too far south, right, then we're not going to have enough moisture to work with, so we're not going to have that dynamic cooling process. We're not going to have heavy precipitation rates that we need in order for this to actually stick. So take that into consideration as well. Whoops, sorry about that. So let's look at what the latest European model is showing. So look at that energy diving south Sunday. Now, as we've mentioned before, we want that energy to ride along the Red River in order to impact Northwest Arkansas. So I'm going to reset this right here so I can kind of zoom in on this here. So we're gonna stop it Sunday at 4 p.m., right? So everybody's getting cozy at the house. They're getting ready for the Super Bowl to rock and roll, and it's raining outside, and temperatures are starting to drop off here in Northwest Arkansas. Now look at all this energy that's moving through the area. This would be a favorable track for some wraparound precipitation here in NWA. Again, this is going to be on the backside of the system. That's when we're going to be dealing with all of this winter weather potential. So as we go along in time, you can see that we've got more energy coming through on the backside of the system early Monday morning. So if I go back here, and it's zoomed out there for a minute. So if we go back to 4 o'clock p.m., all this is still plain old regular rain in Northwest Arkansas. But as that wraparound moisture comes in, as that dynamic cooling takes place, as we get on the cold side of that system, that's when we start seeing that change over to a rain-snow mixture and potentially all snow as we go throughout early Monday morning with that backside of that energy. You see those white colors just off to the west of Fayetteville? That's all that energy that's coming in on the backside of the system that could be impacting our weather early Monday morning. So that's going to bring us our snowfall potential. If anybody has any questions about that, let me know. I hope I was able to help you guys understand that there. But the point is, we've got a lot of energy to work with on Sunday, and we've got a lot of things that we've got to look at very closely because the track of the system is going to make or break it. If that system is too far south, right, we're not going to have enough energy to work with for snowfall. If it goes a little bit too far north, well, we might not have that dynamic cooling process fast enough and it might not cool off fast enough for us to have a whole lot of snow. So, and here's the thing. I don't think we're going to have a lot of snow. This is not a winter storm. This is going to be very similar to those storm systems that we had throughout January, where we're borderline freezing or a little bit above it. We have very heavy precipitation rates, and that allows the atmosphere to cool, and that allows for the ground to cool as well over time, and that causes those short-term problems on the roadways, right? So this is going to be happening during the overnight hours Sunday. This is going to be an evolving process that is it's going to give me a headache throughout Monday morning. I'm already calling it right now. I'm going to have probably a mini migraine when all's said and done. But it's something that we're going to have to watch very closely as we move throughout your Monday morning commute, because we know that when snow's falling, even if it's borderline freezing, it can cause problems on the roadways, especially if we have heavy precipitation rates. So we'll keep a close eye on it. And I'll be here in studio, and Zach will have more updates over the weekend. Dan's going to have the latest model information this afternoon and evening as well. So we've got a lot of things that we're going to keep you posted on with this system. So having said that, let's take a look at the latest European model. And I'm going to show you a closer look at this because I think it best kind of illustrates what we're dealing with. So there's that's the HRRR. Whoops. Let's go to the European model here. Come on, Josh. Come on. All right, here we go. So Saturday, if anybody's wondering about Saturday, I know we got the polar plunge going on. I think Saturday is actually going to be fine in most spots. I think the bulk of the energy is going to be off to the south and east of the area. Sprinkles or drizzle possible throughout the day, but temperatures generally in the lower to upper 50s. So Saturday is really not a problem in the weather world. Now, starting Sunday morning, at least according to this model, we're already dealing with some showers in northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. That makes sense. Temperatures are going to be in the middle to upper 30s, so right around 40 degrees along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. And this will be important. Whatever our starting temperature is, that will be important on Sunday, because once this precipitation continues to fall, we can already start the process of dynamic cooling here in our area. And that's what some of the models are picking up on in the higher train of northwest Arkansas. Check out Huntsville, Jasper, Harrison, Newton, Madison, Boone County, the normal suspects, Carroll County, in the higher train of northwest Arkansas. These areas, I wouldn't be surprised if we already had a rain-snow mixture Sunday afternoon into the evening hours. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe it's a little bit too aggressive, but it's possible. And the precipitation rates could be heavy enough where we could have some minor problems on the roadways. So we'll have to keep an eye on that in the higher train of NWA Sunday afternoon. Now, for the rest of northwest Arkansas, this particular model is showing that transition Sunday evening at like 8, 9 o'clock. And this is when people are partying. This is when Super Bowl parties are going on. This is when everybody's having a good time. But might want to keep an eye on radar if you're not staying at your buddy's house Sunday night, because that could be some trouble right there. And again, this is just one model. This is a deterministic model. But even the ensembles, which have multiple pieces of data that we look at, are showing a pretty consistent signal for snow Monday morning. Now, they're a little bit too aggressive in terms of the snowfall amounts, and you're going to see that in just a minute. But the point is, we could have impacts as early as Sunday evening in northwest Arkansas, not just the higher train of northwest Arkansas, but also Fayetteville, Bentonville, Rogers, southwest Missouri, northeast Oklahoma. Those areas could already be having impacts. So as we progress in time, still have some energy moving through Monday morning. Temperatures, again, right around freezing in northwest Arkansas. I think it'll be maybe a little bit colder than this if the dynamic cooling process starts a little bit earlier. But just as quickly as it arrives, it pushes out of here by Monday midday. So a short-term, impactful event. That's what I think we're going to be looking at with this particular storm system, because by Monday afternoon, we got sunshine. We got temperatures in the lower upper 40s. It's gone. It's off the roadways. So that's the storm system that we're looking at Sunday to Monday. It's too early to make a snowfall accumulation map, in my opinion. It's too early to get into specific timing because the timing is different with pretty much every single model. But here's what I'll say. I say this. This is my forecast. We could have snow as early as Sunday evening in the higher train of northwest Arkansas. As early as Sunday evening, right? What I think is going to happen is I think we're going to see a transition to snow more Sunday overnight into Monday morning. That's what I think is going to happen. And again, that's all assuming that low pressure track stays along the Red River. We get that wraparound precipitation. We get that dynamic cooling starting a little bit earlier. That would feed into that process for Northwest Arkansas. So that's what we're looking at with Sunday to Monday. Now, I know Dan did this yesterday, which I thought was so funny. He showed like a really quick image of the European and the GFS model. Here's what I'll do. I trust you guys enough to not screenshot this and go crazy with it, right? And remember, this is various computer models and various model runs. Now, here's the deal. Well, GFS is glitching out here. Huh, come on. So here's the deal. Some of these higher resolution models of GFS is just crapping out. Okay. Well, the graph can't go out that far yet, so it's not picking up on everything, but it's starting to pick up on some accumulation going on in the higher terrain of Northwest Arkansas with lighter amounts. Now, here's the deal. With a system like this, I am pretty much taking whatever these models say and subtracting them by a full 2 to 3 inches, right? At the least. Maybe even more with this system now and the way it's moving through. So this panel can't go out far enough, so I'm going to have to show a different view here. So stand by for just a minute because I don't even have the GFS snowfall map on my graphics because I just don't like it that much. But let's look at the European. Let's just go ahead and look at what it's showing. So here's the deal. It's showing 2 to 4, 4 to 6 inches. But remember, I'm subtracting 3 to 4 with this system, right? Because it's going to take a while for these temperatures to drop off. So right now, I would say preliminary snowfall forecast, a dusting to 2 inches. And the 2 inches would be in the higher terrain of Northwest Arkansas, right? So that's my preliminary snowfall forecast there. And again, that's just one model run. It's deterministic. Pretty much all of the ensembles are showing a signal for snow. Aaron says, so minus 1 inch of snow. I mean, that's the joke that Dan and I make when it comes to systems like these. But I mean, again, the rule of thumb is that these models are assuming when they're pumping out snowfall totals that the temperature is below freezing. Remember, a lot of the times these maps don't take into account that a lot of times we could have snow falling when it's above freezing. So that's why we take out a little bit in terms of totals. Now, again, even though it's above freezing, we still have the potential for accumulation because we have heavy enough snowfall rates, right? And that's why it's going to be very borderline in terms of if we don't have heavy enough precipitation rates. That track of the system matters a lot. But as of right now, looking at the model data, looking at the temperatures and stuff like that, I think a dusting to 2 inches is probably a safe bet right now. Ooh, good question by Hale. What is the snow depth showing? Well, Hale, we can't show that. So I can show that to you right now. Stand by. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to give you a look at what some of these models are showing. So just give me a quick second here so I can switch this out. And I won't be able to see comments when I do this, so just be aware of that. Just a heads up in advance. Once I switch it to share screen mode, I can't look at your comments, but I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do snow depth. So let's look at snow depth from the European model first. So I'm gonna go. Okay, I see one more comment here. Ashley, dusting to 2 inches is a huge gap. Honestly, Ashley, I mean, most of the time we say 1 to 3 inches, and that's the same amount that I'm giving for this. Dusting to 2 inches is 2 inches. That's a 2 inch gap. 1 to 3 inches is a 2 inch gap. 2 to 4 inches, it's a 2 inch gap. That's what our model is showing there, right? So it's showing 2 to 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches, right? So I see here they say we need a few feet of snow. I know there's some folks out there that are wishing for it, including yourself, Ashley. And here's the deal. You know, before I got this job, and I promise I'm going to show the snow depth map, but I have to mention this. Before I got this job, I was a snow fanatic. I love snow, couldn't get enough of it. I was obsessed with it, always rooting for a big snowstorm. Now that I actually work here, ooh, I don't know if I like snow as much anymore. Especially when we get snow and the temperatures drop off below zero. I mean, and especially having to wake up in the morning and drive in it at 2 o'clock in the morning, having to heat up the car, having to scrape off the car. Ugh. I'm not the biggest fan anymore, Ashley, but you know what? Eventually, we're going to get to that point where we get a few feet of snow again. It's happened before in Northwest Arkansas. It will happen again in the future. So fret not. It will happen. Maybe it's in 5 years. Maybe it's in a week. Maybe it's in a month, but it will happen eventually. It's just not going to happen with this storm system. But that is a funny comment right there. It's giving me flashbacks like right there to when I was younger. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the model data. Let's go ahead and look at that snow depth that Hale was mentioning. Just going to make sure that's showing up. I think it is. Yep. So I'm going to pull this up full screen so we can get a good look at that. So this is the snow depth map. So we're going to kind of go along in time here. We're going to get to Sunday. So Saturday night into Sunday, nothing, obviously. And here we go. So it's already starting to show some accumulation in the higher terrain of Northwest Arkansas Sunday afternoon to evening. I think that would make sense if dynamic cooling takes over, if the track of the system is favorable. I'd see no reason why that wouldn't happen. It's going to be lighter in terms of snowfall totals, and that's why it's not showing a whole lot, even though we have heavy precipitation rates, because it's a process, right? We're still sitting at 35, 36 degrees. So we need those heavy precipitation rates to continue. And assuming that does continue, we're going to start seeing some accumulation in the lower terrain of Northwest Arkansas as well. So here we go. This particular model is showing about a dusting to 3 inches for portions of Northwest Arkansas, maybe even 4 inches for Southwest Missouri. But is that being too aggressive? Maybe. But the European model, in my opinion, is showing a very favorable track for snow. It's going to be a thin swath of snow, and it's going to have to line up exactly as the European says it is. But if this does happen, I think this is, if you're a snow lover, this is best case scenario right here, in my opinion. Over 2 inches. Like 2 to 3 inches in the higher terrain, maybe in Southwest Missouri and far northwestern Arkansas. This is like the best case scenario for snowfall accumulation as we move throughout Sunday into Monday, but especially Monday morning, right? So that's the snow depth. Obviously, a lot lower than the total snowfall, which if we go to the total snowfall, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, it's a lot higher, as you can tell, than what the snow depth is showing. But definitely a fine line between the haves and have-nots. I don't think the River Valley is going to see a whole lot from this system. I just don't think dynamic cooling is going to take over very quickly there. So that's the European model. I don't know if the GFS can show snow depth, but one thing we can look at is the ensemble data. There's the GFS. Yeah, I don't know about them apples. So that's the 10-to-1 ratio total snowfall in Northwest Arkansas. Really, with this system, it's going to be more like 7-to-1, maybe even more than that ratios initially. So that's assuming a 10-to-1 ratio. We're going to be more like 7-to-1 in terms of ratio. But check out the snow depth. Hold on. Let's go back here in time. So this is why snow depth is so much better, guys, because this is for that same time period early Monday morning. Well, that's Tuesday. Huh? Hold on. Okay, here we go. Early Monday morning. I don't know why I was at Tuesday. Early Monday morning, you see about a dusting to 2 inches in Northwest Arkansas, as I just mentioned there. That's the snow depth. But if we go back to snow total, what is it? It's showing a foot of snow in Southwest Missouri. What's going on here? And this is why we stress the importance of, looking at social media carefully, right? Because you're going to see a map like this. I guarantee it. You're going to see a map like this on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever social media platform that you use. That's going to say foot of snow in Southwest Missouri and Northwest Arkansas. But that's not the case. Because remember, the temperatures are going to be above freezing to start. We're going to have heavy enough precipitation rates for the potential for accumulated snowfall, but it's not going to be that much, right? I'd be shocked if we got that much snow. I would be just swept off my feet shocked. So that's why I think a dusting to 2 inches of snow right now is a good preliminary amount with this storm system. But, that's crazy. It just shows you. This is Monday morning, snow depth. This is the same time frame, snow accumulation total 10-to-1 ratio. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's why you just got to be very careful. Very, very careful on social media. So let's go ahead and look at the ensembles, which this is a 10-to-1 ratio. There's snow depth, by the way, which is showing a little bit higher in terms of snow depth than the European model. let's look at the probabilities here. So let's go to probabilities winter. Probability of total snowfall over 1 inch. And it's showing a good signal. I will say this. It's showing a good signal for about 1 inch of snow in northwest Arkansas. In the higher train, it's picking up on that right there, if you can see there. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in any more than this. But you can see in northwest Arkansas, the higher train has higher probabilities for over 1 inch of snow. Well, the rest of northwest Arkansas has a pretty good chance. Now, the River Valley is also included in that, but at this time, I think the River Valley is going to see less than 1 inch of snow with this system. Northwest Arkansas will have the best chance to see 1 to 2 inches, maybe, especially the higher train. Let's look at the probability over 3 inches, just to laugh about. Now, here's something here's something I need to remember right now. Now, I'm gonna look at the comments real quick because I can actually look at the comments. I'm asking a question to the audience here. If you can see on the snowfall map right now, what is something that we need to look at? What if you look at the top right of the page where it says probability of total snowfall? Does anybody know what we need to look at when we're considering that probability? I'm going to see if anybody answers here. I'm going to give it about 30 seconds. What's something that we need to be aware of? What's the specific product that we're looking at right now that could be overdoing things? Okay, I see temps throughout the event from Kyle. That's definitely a very important aspect of the system. Hail is getting very close. Snow ratio. Aaron's close as well with the ratio, right? It says 10 to 1. Exactly. Boom. Got it right there. 10 to 1 ratio. You got the ratio down. So we're assuming that this is a 10 to 1 ratio, right? And we just showed you on the GFS model, right, how it was showing 9, 10, 11, 12 inches with a 10 to 1 snow ratio, right? And it's assuming that temperatures are below freezing throughout that whole event. But that's not going to be the case, right? And that's why the snow depth is a lot lower than these 10 to 1 ratio maps, right? So a lot of good answers too that are factors at play. The depth of the cold air, definitely very important as well. Very good answer right there. The jet stream pattern plays a role as well, Hannah. We're going to see that dip, that colder air moving in on the backside of the system. The amount of moisture, David, the track of the system as well is going to play a role with that. So all very good answers right there, all factors with the system. And that's why we have uncertainty right now, because there are so many factors that still need to be fine-tuned with the system, right? There's still a lot of possibilities to look at with the system. But very good answers. Again, this is assuming a 10 to 1 ratio. I got to be careful when I'm looking at this. This is not snow depth, right? This is not the probability of total snowfall, assuming snow depth for this time period. It's 10 to 1 ratio. Temperatures are 32 degrees or lower the whole time. That's not going to be the case. Again, though, having said all that, I know this is very long-winded, and I hope I answered everybody's questions when it came to the uncertainty with the system. But the short and skinny of it is that there will be the potential for accumulated snow Sunday night into Monday morning. Minor travel impacts are looking like a possibility right now, at least while the snow is falling. Because once that snow stops falling, it's going to be melting very quickly. It's going to become very slushy, and the road crews should be able to get that out of here by the afternoon hours. So that's what we're looking at right now with the model data. If anybody has any questions here or anything, just let me know. But again, that's what we're looking at right now in terms of that Sunday into Monday system. Okay, so Hale's got a good question here. Are you worried about the models underestimating the cold air? I am. I'm always worried about that, Hale. That's what happened with these systems earlier this year, back in January. Not the one when we got below zero, right? Because that was slam dunk. It's going to snow, right? It was the ones where, okay, our temperatures are 35, 34, 33, 32 degrees, right? Is it too warm, right? Or is it too cold even, right? Is the dynamic cooling process actually taking place? That is a very good point right there that you just mentioned. I am always worried about it both underestimating and overestimating the cold air, right? That's always a possibility. I think in general, if the European is correct, right, it's pretty much on the money. Because if we got heavy rainfall rates throughout the day Sunday, the dynamic cooling process is going to take place quicker, right? So that would mean the potential for more snow. So definitely something that we're looking at right now, Hale, and a very good point right there. Okay, just joined, Brian. What time does this all start? So, okay, so in terms of um, the system that's coming through Sunday to Monday, which I'm assuming is what you're talking about, and I'll talk about the timing of the system coming up later on this afternoon in just a few moments. But I'm going to move myself out of the way. I'm still talking about your comment right now. For the Sunday system, this all starts moving in, I think, as early as Sunday morning. But really, the heavy rain threat is in the afternoon and evening, right when you're watching the Super Bowl. And this is when we're also watching the temperatures very closely at our houses while watching the Super Bowl at the same time. So, and again, this particular model is showing the transition in the higher train of Northwest Arkansas as early as Sunday afternoon. I think that's a possibility. I think for Northwest Arkansas on the lower elevations, it could happen as early as Sunday evening. But the main time frame, in my opinion, are going to be um, Monday morning, Sunday night into early Monday morning during the overnight hours. That I think that's the main time frame. It's too early to talk about specific times, but I think Sunday night into Monday morning is a good bet right now for snowfall potential. Okay, Aaron, I know you want to hear the opening day forecast. I will get to the opening day forecast. I've seen your questions. I know you want to know about what's going on next Friday, and we can tell you that. I promise I will. I promise I will. Nikita, I'm right there with you. I'm so ready for spring. I'm so ready for some warmer weather. I cannot wait to be in shorts every single day. It just feels so good to put shorts on when I get home. Oh, it's just so satisfying. Okay, so Dan, January 5th. Yep, that was exactly the system. And that was when the precipitation rates were really fast. Accumulation occurred on the roads with temperatures well above freezing. And that's very similar to this system, right? I mean, it's going to be dynamic cooling. Temperatures are going to be right around 31, 32 degrees or above that for most of the event. And it doesn't matter. Like the common misconception is that, it's 35 degrees, it can be snowing, but it doesn't cause impacts. That's not necessarily true. If the precipitation rates are heavy enough, as Dan is mentioning here, you can have accumulation and you can have problems on the roadways. They might be short term impacts, but they're impacts nonetheless. And I'm just praying that this doesn't happen Monday morning during the commute. But unfortunately, I think that is likely to be the case right now. So this is something that we've got to be aware of, especially if you live in Madison, Newton, Boone, Carroll County, the usual suspects, right? For higher train snows. That's where I think we have the most likely. That's the most likely area for accumulation as we move throughout this event. I do want to show my latest timing for the 2-day forecast timeline. And Dan, you'll notice I haven't really changed much. I did not increase the rain chances. I'm keeping them at 30% just because the models they're just going back and forth. They're being wishy-washy right now. And when the models are wishy-washy, a lot of the times I lean towards a little bit less in terms of precipitation and in terms of storm coverage. So I'm keeping 30%, starting at 4 o'clock p.m. and continuing through about 10, 11 o'clock, and then dropping off during the overnight hours. Saturday, 20% chance of some drizzle or sprinkles in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley during the afternoon, but the main event does not arrive until Sunday. So Saturday in general is looking okay. Polar plunge is going to be fine. In fact, I mean, if there's any year to do the polar plunge, this will be the year because temperatures in the middle to upper 50s. That sounds pretty good, honestly, to do a polar plunge. I know last year it was like 28, 30 degrees for that polar plunge. So, yeah, definitely a lot better for those folks participating in that. This is an interesting point right here. Leading edge of the precip Sunday could be snow and sleet with the wet bulbing that could take place. And that's certainly something that we got to keep an eye on, Dan, right there. I know the area forecast discussion was talking a little bit about that this morning. I know it's something that some of the models are picking up on as well, especially in far northwestern Arkansas, southwest Missouri, especially if temperatures are in the middle to upper 30s. Yeah, definitely could see some snow and sleet initially with that system. And then that could aid in the dynamic cooling process too throughout the day, because I do think we transition to mostly rain during the afternoon if we do see snow or sleet. But then if we get those heavier precipitation rates, that just cools off the atmosphere even quicker. So that's something that we'll be watching very closely there as well. So I don't know if there's anything else I want to show. Nikita, if you're still on here, I showed Riley and Chip, by the way, with all their Kansas City gear. And if you're still on here, I got to give a birthday shout out to Chip, turning 10, I believe on January 31st. So I got to give a shout out to my boy right there. Of course, Jason Sewell and I were joking about this morning about how we're both wearing red ties. And we're wearing red ties because we're rooting for the team in red on Sunday. There is no doubt who Chip and Riley are rooting for on Sunday. They are rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. I got the Kansas City Chiefs balloon right there. And, of course, we've got red paws in the forecast as well later on this afternoon with the chance for showers and thunderstorms in the forecast. So we'll keep an eye on it. Dan, Peyton, Zach are all going to be here. I'm going to be close by as well because we're still keeping an eye. We might have a storm spotter meeting as well. I don't know if there's any storm spotters on here right now, but still keeping a close eye on the latest data, and we'll make a determination on that later on this morning into the early afternoon hours. But that's what we're working with right now. Hope I answered everybody's questions as well. But again, marginal risk of severe weather for portions of Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley at this time. I wouldn't be surprised if that extended a little bit farther north to include more of Northwest Arkansas, but we'll keep an eye on it. Again, I'm assuming that later on this afternoon we're going to have more information. Dang it! I forgot to tell you an opening day forecast, a preliminary opening day forecast, Aaron, for Baum-Walker Stadium for James Madison. So let me do that just real quick for you right here. I want to make sure that everybody's questions was answered. I know you were asking about that. So right now, Aaron, I think for Northwest Arkansas, what the heck? Where did my stuff go? What's going on here? Hold on. This is the struggles of being by myself in the morning. So hold on here. I promised you a forecast. Let's just do this. Let's go to the European here. I'm telling you right now, I think next Friday is going to be good. It might be a little bit cool in Northwest Arkansas, but overall, dry. So you can take that to the bank. I do think late next week is looking pretty chilly, Aaron, though. And I think that whole weekend is going to be pretty chilly for baseball here in Northwest Arkansas. So something to keep an eye on right there. But mostly cloudy skies. That's what the models are showing right now. We'll see if there's any precipitation in the forecast, but at the least, I think it is going to be a lot colder as we move throughout the latter half of next week. All right, I'm now officially done. I'm going to wrap things up. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Friday. Stay safe out there. Dan, Zach, Peyton will have all the latest information coming up later on this afternoon into the evening hours. But for now, have a good one, everybody. God bless you, and we'll see you later today.